What happens when a comedy giant, a disgraced prince, and one of the most polarizing women in modern history all collide on a yacht? That's not the setup to a joke. That's the question reverberating across tabloids, Twitter threads, and boardrooms from Buckingham Palace to Beverly Hills. And at the center of it all is a single explosive moment. When Trevor Noah, a man known for eviscerating the powerful with a smile, stood in front of a camera and made a joke that wasn't really a joke at all. A sharp line delivered with surgical precision, referencing leaked yacht photos so scandalous, they sent Meghan Markle into what insiders are calling her most catastrophic meltdown yet. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The crowd laughed. The camera panned. But Meghan reportedly lost it. Let's not sugarcoat it. This story is a grenade thrown into the heart of royal narratives, celebrity branding, and media manipulation. And it all centers around a set of photographs that should never have seen the light of day. Photos that place Meghan Markle, yes, the Duchess of Sussex herself, on a yacht with none other than Prince Andrew. Let that sink in. Now, before you click away or roll your eyes, ask yourself this. Why is everyone so desperate to bury this story? Why did Meghan's legal team allegedly go nuclear within hours of the images circulating in private media circles? Why did Trevor Noah, who could have made a joke about anything, choose this moment to drop a line that insiders claim was a veiled shot across the bow? Because this isn't just about a joke. It's about what happens when the carefully polished mirror of royalty starts to crack and someone dares to hold up the shards. In the next hour, we're pulling back every layer of this scandal. And we're not talking vague accusations or recycled tabloid fodder. We're talking named insiders. We're talking whistleblowers. We're talking forensic analysis of the yacht photos. And we're talking about the one man, Trevor Noah, who decided to go there when everyone else wouldn't. So buckle up, because this story stretches across continents, over a decade of buried history, and into the heart of a royal machine desperately trying to control its narrative. But before we dive into the details, we have to start with what's now being called the Monaco moment, that sharp, savage comment from Trevor Noah that didn't just break the internet. It cracked open a vault. It all began innocently enough, or so it seemed. Trevor Noah, on stage at a glitzy, star-studded event, microphone in hand, charisma on full display. The kind of setting where biting satire and champagne flow in equal measure. People expected jabs at politicians, barbs at billionaires, maybe a cheeky line about Prince Harry's memoir. But no one expected him to say what he did. And let's give it up for Meghan Markle. Trevor began with that knowing smirk. A woman so committed to privacy, she once spent 3 nights on a yacht with Prince Andrew because he promised it had no cameras. The crowd froze. 1 second of silence. Then a ripple of nervous laughter. Then chaos. Some laughed. Some gasped. A few, according to reports from insiders at the event, physically turned to their publicists in panic. Phones came out. Tweets were typed, deleted, rewritten. Meghan's name began trending within minutes, next to Trevor's, and more disturbingly, next to Prince Andrew's. And somewhere, in Montecito or maybe a private hotel suite, Meghan saw the footage. Sources say she was livid. Not amused. Not bothered. Livid. Because the joke wasn't just edgy. It was specific. It referenced something only a handful of insiders knew about. A whisper campaign, an old rumor, a handful of photos that had quietly circulated among tabloid editors and gossip brokers, but never published. Not until now. Trevor's joke blew the lid off a story that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. But why now? Why would he risk it? To answer that, we have to rewind. Back to a time when Meghan Markle was not yet a duchess, not yet a global brand, not yet a royal wife with a Netflix deal and a Spotify disaster in her wake. Back when she was still an actress, still networking, still climbing. And back to a yacht docked off the coast of Monaco. Let's pause and ask something uncomfortable. Why do certain years of Meghan Markle's life feel blurry? Why is there so little clear documentation of her early Hollywood hustle, beyond Suits? Why do biographies skip past her time in Europe? And why do so many names get dropped into blind items, only to disappear later? Because every celebrity has a past. But not every celebrity becomes royalty. When Meghan entered the royal family, A lot of people got very motivated to clean up her image. That's not a conspiracy, it's brand protection. And the British monarchy is very good at brand protection. It's what they do. But Trevor Noah? He's not part of the brand. He's a disruptor. A man who grew up under apartheid, who uses humor to call out hypocrisy. And when he made that joke, it wasn't by accident. He was calling out something he knew would land. Something he suspected the audience might not be ready to confront. And something Meghan herself hoped would never surface again. The leaked yacht photos. Now, you might be wondering, how do we know they exist? Because multiple outlets have confirmed being approached with them. Because insiders at two major photo licensing agencies admitted off-record that the images had been held due to legal threats. And because in the wake of Trevor's joke, at least one blurry frame began circulating in encrypted forums. What does it show? Two figures. One woman in a white one-piece swimsuit, sunglasses, hair tied back. One man, unmistakably bald, seated beside her, holding a glass. The background? Monaco. The year? Believed to be 2015. Do the timestamps line up with Meghan's known schedule? That's where things get murky. Because 2015 was a transitional year. Meghan had wrapped filming for Suits and was traveling. There are gaps, weeks at a time, where paparazzi had no sightings. And in one of those windows, a private yacht in the Mediterranean reportedly played host to a roster of wealthy, well-connected men and aspiring actresses. But the connection to Prince Andrew? That's what's explosive. Because Andrew's ties to Epstein, his yacht parties, and his connections to models have been thoroughly documented. The idea that Meghan may have crossed paths with him years before becoming royal? That's not just awkward, it's potentially incendiary. Especially if there are photos to prove it. Why is this blowing up now? Because the monarchy is wobbling. King Charles is aging. Prince William is under pressure. Prince Andrew is disgraced. And Harry and Meghan? They've become wild cards. Loose cannons. And in some circles, dangerous ones. So when Trevor Noah brought up the yacht, and the joke hit the airwaves, people noticed. People remembered. People started connecting dots they'd been told to ignore. And Meghan? She reportedly panicked. Because if even part of the yacht story is true, it could unravel years of curated image building. It could cast doubt on her royal entry story. And it could, worst of all, link her to the one person the palace wants to disappear quietly. Andrew. The joke was the match. The leaked image was the flame. What happens next is the wildfire. But before we go there, before we examine the images, the insider leaks, the whistleblower statements, we have to start with the exact moment the narrative broke open. Trevor Noah's joke, delivered with surgical precision, heard around the world. Because that wasn't just a punchline. It was a warning shot. And Meghan knew it. What if a single joke could unravel an empire? Not a scandalous headline. Not a secret letter. Not a leaked phone call. Just a perfectly timed, razor-sharp quip, served cold, under bright lights, in front of a room full of Hollywood insiders and international media. That's exactly what happened the night Trevor Noah took the stage and delivered what many now call the most dangerous joke of his career. But the question is, was it really just a joke? Or was it a public warning? It all went down at a high-profile comedy gala in Los Angeles. An annual fundraiser disguised as a star-studded awards show. You know the type. Red carpets, champagne towers, celebrities mingling with CEOs, tech billionaires rubbing shoulders with influencers. A room so polished, it practically gleamed with money, power, and curated reputation. And on this night, the guest list was particularly electric, because whispers were already flying before anyone even arrived. Something was coming. No one quite knew what. But backstage, PR reps looked tenser than usual. Security had doubled. And among the whispered confirmations and frantic calls was one phrase overheard again and again. Trevor's doing something risky tonight. Now, Trevor Noah is no stranger to towing the line. He's built his career on dismantling politics, power structures, and privilege, all with a disarming smile. But this night felt different. According to a stagehand who spoke off the record, Trevor asked for his teleprompter to be disconnected. He wanted to go off script. That alone sent shivers through the room. And then, just past the 1-hour mark, as laughter began to lull and guests grew tipsy enough to loosen their collars, Trevor stepped forward and said the line that lit the fuse. And let's give it up for Meghan Markle. A woman so committed to privacy, she once spent 3 nights on a yacht with Prince Andrew. Because he promised it had no cameras, the silence was instantaneous. Not the playful hush you hear after a bold joke. This was thick, uneasy, like someone had opened a trapdoor beneath the stage. A few awkward chuckles popped up, but the kind that said, "Should we be laughing at this?" A well-known producer seated near the front reportedly dropped his fork mid-bite. A reality TV star turned visibly pale. One British executive was seen muttering, "Bloody hell," into his wine glass. But Trevor? He didn't flinch. He smiled, paused, then leaned into the mic and said, almost under his breath, "Too soon." That broke the tension. The audience roared, part out of relief, part out of shock, and part because no one wanted to be the first to admit they didn't get the joke. But behind the laughter, there was confusion, discomfort, and then the rapid-fire tapping of thousands of fingers on smartphones. The clip hit social media within minutes. Headlines spun into existence faster than Meghan's PR team could issue a no comment. And for those who did get the joke, they weren't laughing. Because this wasn't just comedy. This was precision sabotage, wrapped in satire. Within an hour, Trevor Noah Meghan yacht joke was trending in 5 countries. By midnight, Prince Andrew yacht had re-entered Google's top search queries for the first time since his infamous BBC interview. Tabloid editors began combing their archives, dusting off stories they'd been warned never to publish. And Meghan? Well, insiders say she was blindsided. She wasn't at the event, but her name and her alleged past were now dominating the news cycle. According to one source close to her camp, Meghan was in the middle of a scheduled Zoom call for a new Archewell initiative when she saw the clip. Her reaction was immediate. She shut the laptop, walked out of the room, and told her assistant to get Trevor's people on the phone, now. Damage control kicked into high gear. Lawyers were contacted. Crisis teams were briefed. Longtime allies were pinged with the classic, "I need a favor" text. But the problem wasn't just the joke, it was what it implied. Because the line Trevor delivered was too specific. It wasn't vague. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a direct reference to a very real rumor. One that had circulated in elite circles for years, but had never been spoken aloud in public. Until now. And once it was out there was no stuffing it back into the vault. So let's ask the uncomfortable question. What did Trevor know? Because you don't make a joke like that on a whim. Especially not in a room filled with agents, lawyers, studio execs, and royalty-adjacent elites. You certainly don't casually connect Meghan Markle, a woman still entangled with the British monarchy, to Prince Andrew, arguably the most radioactive royal of the modern era. Unless you know something. Unless you've seen something. Unless someone told you something. One theory floated among insiders is that Trevor had been tipped off, not by a journalist, but by someone on the inside. A former staffer, a disgruntled aide, someone who knew the context behind the leaked yacht photos and saw this moment as an opportunity to send a message. Think about it. What better way to unleash a buried scandal than through a joke? It's deniable. It's viral. And most importantly, it can't be sued for slander if framed as satire. Trevor may have opened the floodgates without ever having to answer for it. And Meghan? She knew what that meant. The calls started pouring in. Not from journalists, at first, but from friends. From old co-stars. From former contacts. The kind of people who text, "Hey, saw the show. You okay?" Followed by the pregnant pause of silence that means, "Please don't drag me into this." Then came the requests for comment. Page 6. TMZ. The Daily Mail. Rolling Stone. Even Variety reached out with the question no one dared ask directly. Do you plan to respond to Trevor Noah's comments regarding alleged past associations? Notice the phrasing. Alleged past associations. The story was metastasizing. And Meghan's team, caught off guard, didn't have a unified strategy. Some advised silence. Others pushed for legal threats. One PR strategist reportedly floated the idea of spinning it as a tasteless joke rooted in misogyny. But even that couldn't cover the uncomfortable truth. People were wondering if the story was real. Now, this is where things take a turn. Because not everyone in that gala audience was a Hollywood power player. According to 2 separate reports, a low-level employee, believed to be a junior talent coordinator, overheard a conversation backstage between Trevor and a well-known British comedian. And in that conversation, Trevor allegedly said, It's public now. They can't hide it anymore. Let that settle for a second. They can't hide it anymore. Not, it was just a joke. Not, I made it up. But a chilling suggestion that the joke was just the start of something bigger. That the joke was the first domino. And that implies intent. That implies Trevor wasn't just being funny. He was setting something in motion. Why would he do that? Why would Trevor Noah, a comedian known for nuanced commentary, yes, but rarely known for tabloid-style bombshells, go after Meghan Markle with a joke that risked backlash from both the media and the monarchy? Some speculate revenge. Others whisper of industry politics. A few even hint that Trevor had access to unreleased materials, perhaps the same yacht photos others claim to have seen. But the most compelling theory? Trevor was making a statement about hypocrisy, about celebrity culture, about the contrast between curated virtue and hidden vice. Because Meghan Markle has built an empire on her narrative, the victim of palace cruelty, the survivor of royal silencing, the feminist who escaped the gilded cage. And yet, if the yacht story is true, it muddies that image. It forces the public to confront a version of Meghan they've never seen, and one she's worked hard to erase. Maybe Trevor's joke wasn't meant to destroy her. Maybe it was meant to expose a double standard. Maybe it was a test, to see who in the audience would laugh and who would squirm. But Meghan? She wasn't laughing. And the fallout was just beginning. Because while the press dissected the punchline, a darker question began creeping into the conversation. What if the joke wasn't the real story? What if it was the trigger? And what comes next isn't funny at all? They weren't supposed to exist. Not the first photo. Not the second. Not the third. Yet there they were, fuzzy, sun-soaked, and damning. Circulating in encrypted circles. Whispered about in late-night DM threads. Discussed in coded language between tabloid editors and scandal-jaded lawyers. Images that had remained hidden in shadowy vaults for years, until a single joke forced them into the light. And now, suddenly, the question isn't if the yacht photos are real. The question is, who leaked them? And why now? Let's start at the beginning. Monaco, summer of 2015. A time when the Mediterranean was teeming with private yachts, hush-hush parties, and oligarch-funded weekends. A time when Prince Andrew was still clinging to royal immunity, and Meghan Markle, just an actress back then, was still building connections that would define the next chapter of her life. But what connected these two seemingly distant figures? According to a resurfaced guest registry from an exclusive private yacht event that year, several names overlapped in shocking ways. Business tycoons, arms dealers, C-list celebrities, and in one penciled-in note, later erased, a name that caused a ripple across the luxury PR world. M. Markle, VIP guest. Now, let's be clear. A guest registry isn't proof. But when paired with the emerging photos, it becomes a breadcrumb. And as any journalist will tell you, breadcrumbs tend to lead to rotting bread. The first image was grainy, deliberately degraded, most likely to protect the leaker. But even then, the silhouettes were unmistakable. A woman standing near the yacht's bow in a white bathing suit. A man, seated, bald, with a glass of something amber in his hand. A zoomed-in, color-corrected version revealed even more. The woman had her hair tied in a high bun. The same signature look Meghan wore often in her early days. A delicate ankle tattoo visible on her left foot, matching one briefly spotted during a red carpet event in Toronto in 2014. And the man? His posture, his profile, that awkwardly aristocratic slouch. Every digital investigator screamed the same name, Andrew. But was it definitely them? That's the problem. The image is just clear enough to imply, but just blurry enough to deny. A calculated ambiguity. The perfect weapon in a world where reputation is everything and proof is power. So what do we know? We know the metadata attached to the first image places it in July 2015, just off the coast of Cap d'Isle, a small, ultra-wealthy corner of the French Riviera. We know the yacht, based on its design and visible features, matches one previously linked to a now-defunct Middle Eastern investment firm with ties to British aristocracy. And we know the photo wasn't circulating publicly until Trevor Noah made his joke. That's where things get interesting. Because sources close to two British tabloids claim they were offered the photo in 2018, right after Meghan and Prince Harry announced their engagement. The asking price? A cool £250,000. but neither paper ran it. Why? Simple. Legal pressure. Backroom meetings. Veiled threats. One editor claimed they were told in no uncertain terms, "You publish, and you'll never get another palace scoop again." So the photo vanished. Until now. The second photo? That's the one Meghan reportedly fears most. It's less ambiguous. The angle is clearer. The lighting better. The woman's face, while slightly turned, is framed well enough to make a strong case. And the man beside her? Shirtless, wearing the same chain Prince Andrew was spotted wearing in paparazzi shots from the same summer. But the real bombshell? The background. Behind the pair is another guest. A woman, dark hair, large sunglasses, lounging near the deck's rear seating area. Analysts believe this could be Ghislaine Maxwell. Yes, that Ghislaine. Suddenly, the implications shift from awkward to radioactive. If Meghan Markle, even unknowingly, was on a yacht with Andrew and Ghislaine in 2015, that changes everything. It opens doors to questions no palace or PR firm wants to answer. What was she doing there? Who invited her? Did she know who they were? And perhaps more chillingly, what else happened that weekend? No one is accusing Meghan of wrongdoing. Let's be clear about that. But associations matter. Proximity matters, especially in the world of optics and influence. And in the cutthroat theater of royal image-making, guilt by association isn't just a problem, it's a threat. Which brings us to the third image. This one has not been made public in any form, but multiple sources confirm it exists. And the person who allegedly holds it? A former Yacht staffer with a grudge. According to leaked DMs from an anonymous burner account, this insider claims to have worked on the yacht during that infamous week in July 2015. And they described the third photo as a candid moment. She's sitting on the edge of a table, barefoot, talking to someone out of frame. Andrew's about a foot away, looking at her. There's champagne. There's laughter. It looks harmless. But the context? The people around them? It changes everything. They claim they kept the image as insurance, that they were promised hush money that never came, and that they've now received offers from American outlets far larger than any UK tabloid. Here's where it gets even more tangled. The insider alleges that one of the yacht's surveillance systems had been quietly running during that entire trip. Not just photos, video, security footage. And while most of that has been destroyed or hidden, one snippet, a short clip with no audio, may have survived. A clip that shows Meghan, Andrew, and someone else. The insider wouldn't name the third person, but hinted it was a very well-known American businessman who's already had ties to both. Do you see how deep this goes? Now imagine being Meghan Markle. You've built a brand around empowerment, elegance, reinvention. You've distanced yourself from every scandal, every whisper. You've risen from Suits actress to global duchess. And then, a single joke on a comedy stage brings all of it back. Suddenly the yacht story is everywhere. Your old friends are being called. Your past is being dissected. Your name is now sharing headlines with Prince Andrew again. No wonder, as insiders allege, Meghan went nuclear the moment those images re-emerged. Because this wasn't just about defending her image. It was about controlling a narrative that was no longer hers. And the more her team scrambled, the worse it got. Legal letters, threats, deep-fake denials. Claims that the photos had been doctored, despite metadata showing otherwise. Every move just fanned the flames. Even Serena Williams reportedly told friends she was staying quiet for now. Oprah declined to comment. Hollywood turned cold. And all the while, the yacht staffer? Still holding that third image. Still negotiating. Still waiting. But here's the twist. While Meghan's team tried to scrub the story, another question began floating through elite circles. How did Trevor Noah know about the photos? Because remember, this wasn't public knowledge. The images were buried. The story dead. Only a handful of people even knew they existed. So how did a South African comedian, on stage in Los Angeles, know to make that joke, that specific on that night? The timing is too perfect. And if Trevor had seen even one of the photos, that raises another question. Who gave them to him? Not for publication. Not for profit. For leverage. We're not saying Trevor orchestrated the leak. But what if someone wanted him to put it out there? What if the joke was the first domino in a planned collapse? Meghan wasn't just reacting to Trevor. She was reacting to the strategic release of something she thought had been buried for good. And that brings us to the most dangerous part of this whole scandal. The silence. The palace won't touch it. The Sussexes are stonewalling. The tabloids are publishing blind items, but avoiding names. Even mainstream outlets are hesitant, because the legal minefield is too wide. But the photos? They're real. They exist. They're circulating. And they paint a picture that contradicts everything we've been told about how Meghan Markle entered royal life. Not as an outsider, not as a naive actress, but as someone who had already been in rooms, on yachts, with the very people who would later shape her future. If that's true, then this story isn't just about leaked images. It's about a rewritten origin story, one that could shake not just Meghan's brand, but the entire foundation of her and Harry's so-called royal exit. And just when the firestorm seemed uncontrollable, another name entered the chat. Someone who had been silent for nearly a decade. Someone who was on that yacht. Someone ready to speak. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. How do you build a fairy tale when entire chapters of your past are missing? You rewrite it. You sanitize it. You blur the edges until only the most photogenic parts remain. But what happens when someone digs up the original manuscript, and those pages are stained with secrets, contradictions, and people you'd rather the world forget? That's the uncomfortable question Meghan Markle now faces. Because ever since the yacht photos surfaced, and Trevor Noah's joke blasted them into the public domain, a darker narrative has begun to swirl. One that doesn't start with once upon a time in a quaint Toronto apartment, but in far murkier waters. Quite literally. And to understand how the leak of 3 blurry, scandalous images could detonate such chaos, we have to look back. Not to her time as a duchess. Not even to her suit stardom. We have to go back to the version of Meghan she's tried hardest to erase. The version before royalty. Before podcasts and Netflix. Before palace corridors and archetypes PR packages. Back when she was hustling in a different way. A way not captured in curated Instagram posts, but whispered about behind closed doors. Let's start with the missing years. Between 2013 and 2016, Meghan's timeline gets oddly quiet. Oh sure, there's suits. A few red carpet appearances. The occasional yoga post. But look deeper, beyond the Hollywood gloss, and there are strange gaps. Periods of weeks, even months, where no one seemed to know where she was. No paparazzi shots. No fan selfies. No career updates. So where was she? According to a resurfaced casting agent's blog from 2016, Meghan had a habit of vanishing between filming blocks, often flying to Europe for meetings and charity work. A vague statement, innocuous on its face. But charity work doesn't happen on yachts off the Amalfi Coast. And meetings don't usually involve guest lists guarded by Russian security teams. One name that keeps coming up in industry circles from that era? Adel Al Maktoum. The Dubai-based billionaire known for financing luxury influencer trips, owning a fleet of super yachts, and being, allegedly, connected to several powerful media brokers. Several aspiring actresses, models, and reality stars were known to take paid appearances aboard his vessels. Did Meghan attend one of these events? Officially, no. She's never admitted to it. No photos have been released showing her alongside Al Maktoum, but in a leaked 2015 guest manifest from the White Lotus Charter, a floating entertainment vessel often used by the Maktoum network, a name appeared, later scribbled over in pen. M. Markle, L.A., USA, confirmed by RF. Who is RF? Some speculate it's a former modeling agent turned lifestyle recruiter known for organizing talent for these ultra-exclusive events. Someone now retired. Someone who, according to a 2022 whistleblower, had once booked an American actress who later married into the royal family. Coincidence? Or breadcrumb? Because here's what we know. Between 2013 and 2016, Meghan traveled to Ibiza, Capri, St. Bart's, and Monte Carlo. All luxury destinations known for VIP yacht activity. She posted beach pics, but never tagged her hosts. Never showed who she was with. And now, with the photos emerging of her and Prince Andrew on the same yacht in that window of time, people are starting to ask, was she just vacationing? Or networking? Let's take a step back and talk about yacht culture. Not the innocent kind. Not champagne brunches with friends or family sailing trips. We're talking about the darker, glossier underworld of the celebrity yacht circuit. It's a space where models and actresses, often young, ambitious, and underpaid, are flown to luxury destinations for events. They're told there will be producers, investors, opportunities. What's usually waiting instead? Powerful men, oil money, royalty, cameras that aren't visible, and NDAs thicker than a Bible. Some leave with stories. Others leave with silence. Very few leave with dignity. And it's not unique to Meghan. Many aspiring women passed through this ecosystem. But very few later married into the most powerful royal family on earth, which is why her time in that world has always been quietly avoided. Until now. There's a line from her Oprah interview that aged strangely in light of recent events. When asked if she Googled the royal family, Meghan laughed and said, "I didn't do any research about what that would mean. I never looked up my husband online. I just didn't feel a need to." But here's the contradiction. In a now-deleted blog post from 2014, Meghan wrote about the fascination with Princess Kate, referring to her fashion and the pomp of royal weddings. She called the British monarchy a fairy tale many girls dream of. The post, cached by internet archivists, proves one thing. She did know about the royals. She was aware. And that little contradiction? It sparked a quiet fire among biographers and skeptics alike, because it implies Meghan wasn't as unaware as she claimed. She had studied them, admired them, maybe even positioned herself. Pair that with a potential history of mingling with royalty before Harry, and the entire "how we met" narrative starts to wobble. So let's go there. What if Meghan met Prince Andrew before Harry? What if their interaction on that yacht wasn't random? One former Suits colleague, speaking anonymously, mentioned a weird story Meghan once told about meeting a real royal at a boat party, but laughing that he looked nothing like Prince Charming. That story was told in 2016, before she met Harry, before the world changed. Was she referring to Andrew? Was it just a joke? Or was it a glimpse into a timeline that's now being rewritten? We don't know for sure, but that quote aligns eerily with the time and setting of the leaked photos. And if there was prior contact between Meghan and Andrew, then her outsider narrative becomes less Cinderella and more chessboard. Another curiosity, the people who disappear from Meghan's story. There's a revolving door of early friends, agents, stylists, and photographers who were with her in those lost years and then vanished. No longer mentioned, no longer connected. Many of them, when contacted now, either refuse to speak or say no comment. Why? What do they know? One former assistant, who worked with Meghan in Toronto, claimed she had an off-the-books European summer where she traveled to the Riviera on a luxury sponsor trip, but gave strict orders not to post about it. The assistant complied, but always found it strange that Meghan returned changed, less bubbly, more calculated. She was different after that trip, the assistant said, like she'd seen behind a curtain. There's another detail that resurfaced in light of the yacht scandal. An old tweet from 2015 by a fashion photographer named Lucien Ford. It read, "Monaco, July. Private boat shoot with a future queen. You won't believe me, but one day you might." At the time, no one noticed it. But in 2023, a Reddit thread unearthed it. And when people messaged Ford to ask who he meant, the tweet vanished. Deleted. Account locked. Silence. Which leads to the inevitable speculation. Did Meghan attend a photo shoot that week? Was she involved in a branding or influencer deal? And was Andrew, who has a history of introducing women to elite European circles, simply part of the guest list? If even part of that is true, then the facade cracks wide open. Because the image we've been sold, of a sweet actress swept off her feet by a prince, becomes something else entirely. A calculated ascent. A long-game strategy. A woman who wasn't just lucky, but prepared. And yet, this is the contradiction that makes Meghan so compelling and polarizing. Is she a survivor? A master manipulator? Both. Is she a woman who rose against all odds? Or someone who always knew which rooms to enter and which names to remember? Here's where things get messy, eh? Because even now, as the photos circulate and insiders begin to talk, Meghan remains silent. No statement, no denial, no interview. Just a series of quiet moves behind the scenes, tightening the circle, freezing out ex-friends, refusing comment to even her usual allies. Which begs the question, what is she hiding? Or more provocatively, what doesn't she want Harry to know? Because while she's busy protecting her image, another player is about to speak. And their story? It could unravel the very beginning of Meghan's royal arc. Because someone else was on that yacht. Someone no longer afraid to speak. Someone with receipts. And what they're about to reveal could burn the whole fairy tale to the ground. He wasn't supposed to talk. He signed the NDA, took the money, kept the secrets. For nearly a decade, he vanished from the story, content to fade into the background like so many others who'd passed through the floating worlds of the ultra-rich. But when Trevor Noah made that joke, when the yacht photos finally began to leak, he realized something chilling. The story wasn't staying buried anymore. And if it was going to come out, he'd rather control the way it did. So he broke his silence. His name? Redacted. For now. But what we do know is this. He worked aboard the vessel where Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew were allegedly seen together. He was part of the crew that served the drinks, cleaned the decks, ferried guests to and from the coast. And what he says he saw? It doesn't just challenge the official story, it turns it inside out. Let's rewind to July 2015. The yacht, whose name we're withholding due to ongoing legal threats, was docked in Cap d'Ale, a private coastal nook minutes from Monaco. It wasn't an ordinary charter. According to the insider, it was a no-list event, meaning the guest list was entirely verbal, no paper trail, no digital invites. Everything was handled by runners, he says. No one used last names, just initials or code names. Still, he remembers two guests vividly. One was a woman in a white halter dress, large sunglasses, and a wide straw hat. She was American, he recalls. Had that LA energy, sweet to your face, but clearly watching everyone. The other? A man referred to only as Drew. At first, the crew assumed he was just another wealthy patron, until a steward with British roots pulled the insider aside and whispered, "You know who that is, right?" It was Prince Andrew. And yes, according to this crew member, he and the American woman, later believed to be Meghan Markle, did spend time together. Often. What does spending time together look like in this context? That's where things get murky, and where the insider's story begins to truly veer into dangerous territory. He claims Meghan and Andrew were friendly, not overly affectionate, not scandalously close, but familiar, comfortable. They joked like old acquaintances, he says. There was a kind of banter. She'd tease him about being the grumpy Brit. He'd call her California Sparkle. It didn't sound like strangers meeting for the first time. This matters a lot. Because up until now, Meghan has maintained, implicitly or explicitly, that she met Prince Andrew after joining the royal family. There's no public record of any prior connection. No photos. No interviews. No acknowledgement. But if this insider is telling the truth, that timeline collapses. And the entire narrative Meghan has built about being a total outsider to the royal world begins to look dangerously curated. It gets worse. According to the insider, the yacht had an unofficial VIP deck, a private area where the wealthiest guests could relax without being seen by the rest of the party. That's where the real business happened, he says. And by business, I mean deals, conversations, arrangements, sometimes more. He claims Meghan and Andrew spent significant time on that deck. Alone. No cameras. No staff. Just the occasional tray of champagne or fresh fruit, delivered and removed without eye contact. And what were they discussing? The insider doesn't pretend to know. But he remembers one specific moment that haunts him to this day. I brought up a tray of fresh melon, he says. As I approached, I heard him say, "Well, if you ever decide to visit Sandringham, let me know. I'll have someone show you around." He swears Meghan laughed. "Sounds posh. I'm more of a Soho house girl," she allegedly replied. It was a throwaway exchange. But it implies familiarity. And worse, it implies an open door to royal circles long before Harry ever entered the picture. Still not convinced. Let's move to the second bombshell. This same insider claims that after the yacht trip, he was contacted by a third-party fixer. A man claiming to represent an American client with reputation concerns. The message was simple. You didn't see anything. You don't remember anything. And if you do, it wasn't her. The offer? $25,000 and an NDA. He took it. He needed the money. Had medical bills. A pregnant girlfriend. At the time, it seemed like an easy trade, silence for security. But then came Suits. Then came Harry. Then came the wedding. Then came Oprah. And all the while, he watched this woman. This guest from that strange summer yacht party rise to global stardom on a platform of truth-telling and transparency. It gnawed at me, he says. Every time she talked about being a victim of the firm, about being thrown into that world, I wanted to scream. So when the yacht photos leaked, he cracked. He contacted a journalist, passed on fragments of what he had, encrypted texts, time-stamped crew logs, blurred photos from a crew-only WhatsApp group. And eventually, he agreed to talk. Why? Because, he says, she's not who she says she is. And people deserve to know. Let's take a moment to ask something uncomfortable. If even half of this is true, what does it mean? What does it say about Meghan's origin story? What does it say about Harry? Because if Meghan had any contact with Prince Andrew before she ever met Harry, and failed to disclose that, that's not just a PR crisis. That's a personal betrayal. Imagine Harry learning about the yacht trip from Trevor Noah's joke, or worse, from leaked images spreading like wildfire online. Imagine the conversations behind closed doors in Montecito right now. Imagine the silence. And the fury. Now, let's address the obvious rebuttal. This could be a lie. The insider could be making it all up for attention. A payday. Revenge. But here's the thing. He's not selling the story. He hasn't gone to tabloids. He hasn't cashed in. He hasn't revealed his full identity. He's released just enough to validate the photos. Just enough to confirm details that only a crew member could know, like the name of the yacht's hidden security contractor or the brand of imported wine Meghan allegedly requested. These aren't Googleable facts. These are receipts. And behind the scenes, several journalists are now working to verify more. Court filings, immigration logs, non-disclosure contract trails. The dominoes are starting to fall. But here's where the story turns truly dark. According to the insider, there was one night, toward the end of the yacht trip, when a guest lost it. Drank too much. Started yelling. Demanded a staff member be fired for not chilling the caviar properly. That guest? Prince Andrew. And who was reportedly seen calming him down, laughing it off, placing a gentle hand on his arm. Meghan. I remember thinking, wow, the insider says. She knows how to handle people. Powerful people. And she does it like she's done it before. That detail, however small, has stuck with him, because it painted a picture not of an ingenue, but a seasoned player. Someone used to charm, manipulation, social maneuvering. Someone who knew how to survive in elite circles, even when they turned toxic. And that's not the Meghan the public met. That's not the woman in the Vanity Fair profile or the royal wedding veil. That's someone else entirely. But before you write this off as just one man's account, remember this. He's not alone. Another former staffer, this time a chef, has allegedly reached out to the same journalist. Claims to have seen Meghan speaking with two high-level guests about British politics. Claims she mentioned knowing someone at Kensington Palace. If true, that blows open the narrative that Meghan only became curious about royal life after dating Harry. It suggests planning, positioning, a long-game move. So now, the royal machine is watching. The Sussex brand is trembling. And Harry? Well, he's either in the dark, or he's known all along, and chose to look the other way. But what happens when this insider finally drops the full evidence? Names, timestamps, possibly even security footage. What happens when the real story behind the yacht emerges? Because the next leak? It doesn't come from the crew. It comes from someone on the guest list. And what they reveal will make Trevor Noah's joke look like a nursery rhyme. It started with a phone call, not from a journalist, not from a palisade, not even from Trevor Noah's team, but from inside her own circle. A whisper, a warning, a frantic voice saying, "It's out." They've seen the photos. The joke wasn't random, Trevor knows. And in that moment, Meghan Markle's meticulously constructed media fortress began to splinter. Because what came next wasn't just a PR crisis. It was a full-scale reputational implosion, a multi-continent scramble to contain a scandal that threatened to burn down not just her image, but Harry's, the Sussex brand, and every commercial deal still left standing in Montecito. This was Meghan's red alert moment. And insiders say she absolutely lost it. Let's set the scene. It's early morning in California. Meghan is on a scheduled call with Archwell's digital team, reviewing rollout plans for a new wellness podcast series. Calm. Controlled. The usual talking points: empowerment, authenticity, personal growth. Then her phone lights up. At first, she ignores it. Then it rings again and again. By the fourth call, she steps away. What she hears on the other end sends her face pale, her posture rigid. According to one of the assistants in the room, she returned with a look they'd only seen once before, after the South Park episode aired. A cold fury. She picked up her iPad, pulled up the clip of Trevor Noah's joke, and watched in silence. Then again. Then a third time. After that, she slammed the tablet down, whispered, "This is war," and stormed out of the room. That was the beginning. What followed was chaos. The first call she made was to her head of PR. She wanted answers. Why wasn't this flagged earlier? How did Trevor get this information? Who's leaking from our side? But there were no answers. Only speculation. Only more bad news. Within hours, #YachtGirlMeghan was trending. Clips of the joke were circulating on TikTok, complete with dramatic music and side-by-side photo comparisons. YouTube conspiracy channels were pulling up grainy yacht images and overlaying red circles and arrows. And then came the resurfaced blind items, vague gossip posts from years ago referencing an actress-turned-duchess who'd once been seen getting cozy with a disgraced royal on a Mediterranean yacht. All of it was snowballing. By noon, Meghan's legal team had been mobilized. They began firing off cease and desist emails to Instagram accounts, Twitter threads, and independent blogs. Archwell's PR machine issued a vague statement condemning baseless character attacks and recycled misogynistic tropes. But there was a problem. No one had named her. Trevor's joke never mentioned the yacht photos outright. The leakers used initials. The photos were blurry enough to maintain plausible deniability. Legally, it was smoke. But reputationally, it was a wildfire. Then came the internal rift. A junior communications coordinator, one of the youngest hires at Archwell, allegedly suggested that Meghan lean into the controversy with humor. "You could tweet something cheeky," she said. "Defuse it. Take control of the narrative." The room fell silent. And Meghan, reportedly in tears, snapped back. "I'm not a meme. I'm not a punchline. This isn't a joke to me." That coordinator was gone within 48 hours. Not fired officially, but reassigned, then quietly let go. Insiders say Meghan was ruthless in the aftermath. Staff members were interrogated, phones audited, emails screened. A non-disclosure clause was retroactively reinforced in certain employee contracts, something one HR consultant called extreme but technically legal under California law. Harry, meanwhile, was in London on charity business. And sources say their phone conversations during the height of the scandal were tense. One insider put it this way: Harry wanted to ignore it. Meghan wanted to go nuclear. They weren't on the same page. Another added, she accused him of not protecting her. He told her she was overreacting. And the real kicker? Some say Harry hadn't even known about the yacht trip. By the third day, Archwell's communications director had stepped down for personal reasons. Meghan replaced her with a crisis manager from a high-powered Beverly Hills firm known for handling celebrity disasters. Think cheating scandals, leaked tapes, and paternity suits. This was no longer just about optics. This was survival. The new team implemented a four-phase plan. Discredit the leak, suggest the photos were deepfakes. Plant stories about AI manipulation and misinformation. Reframe the narrative. Launch a Women Supporting Women campaign, placing Meghan as the victim of a smear campaign. Control the allies. Get Oprah, Serena, Ellen, and Tyler Perry to issue vague affirmations of support. Silence the critics. Threaten lawsuits against any outlet or YouTuber who even hinted at the Andrew connection. But there was a problem with every step. Discrediting the photos backfired when metadata analysis showed they hadn't been altered. The reframing attempt felt tone-deaf, especially when it emerged that Meghan's team had already tried to bribe media outlets into silence. Her celebrity allies? Quiet. Not one posted in support. Not one statement. Not even a thinking of you tweet. And as for silencing the critics, it only made the story louder. By the end of the week, Meghan was in full lockdown mode. No public appearances. No scheduled interviews. A Netflix project quietly postponed. One Montecito neighbor claimed she hadn't been seen walking the dogs in days. Another said the security around their mansion had tripled overnight. But behind those closed doors, Meghan wasn't sulking. She was strategizing. Because while the press was focused on the leaked photos and Trevor's joke, Meghan was looking for leverage. According to insiders, she began reviewing every contract, every relationship, every vulnerability within the media circle. Who owed her favors? Who had skeletons? Who could be reminded to stay quiet? She reportedly instructed her lawyer to go through everything we have on Trevor. Everything he said about women. Anything controversial. We need pressure points. But here's the irony. The more aggressive Meghan got, the more the press turned against her. Headlines shifted from Trevor's joke causes stir to Meghan's meltdown reveals deeper cracks. And just as she thought she'd regained control, another photo dropped. This one clearer, cruder, and sent directly to two major media outlets with the subject line, "She knows what this is." It showed Meghan, smiling faintly, drink in hand, seated beside a figure almost certainly identified as Prince Andrew. No one else in the frame. No distractions. Just two people. Relaxed. Familiar. Comfortable. And that image? That was the tipping point. Because now, people weren't just speculating. They were believing. Even outlets that had once protected her began to question the official timeline. Biographers quietly pushed back publishing dates. Netflix allegedly requested additional review on future Archewell content. And Meghan? She knew she was bleeding out credibility by the hour. But perhaps the most painful blow wasn't from the media. It was from within. Because around this time, something shifted in her relationship with Harry. He stopped defending her publicly. Canceled a podcast interview where he was meant to talk about media aggression. Refused to sign off on a joint statement denouncing the photos. Why? Insiders say he asked her a simple question. Did you know Andrew before we met? And she didn't answer. Not yes. Not no. Just silence. That silence. It said everything. And while Meghan raced to patch up the sinking ship, she didn't see the iceberg ahead. A second whistleblower. One who wasn't on the crew. One who wasn't paid off. One who was on that yacht, as a guest. And what she was about to reveal would leave Meghan with nowhere left to run. The first photo was a warning. The second? A weapon. If the blurry, grainy image of Meghan and Andrew had sparked chaos, the follow-up was a direct hit. Crystal clear. Unfiltered. Devastating. It wasn't just a picture. It was a moment in time that rewrote the narrative. A captured fragment of history that, once released, couldn't be spun, silenced, or denied. No more allegedly. No more plausible deniability. No more carefully worded press statements. Because the second photo was unambiguous. And it told a story that Meghan Markle had spent years, maybe even a lifetime, trying to bury. The leak didn't come from a tabloid. Not this time. It didn't show up in Daily Mail galleries or Page 6 exclusives. It didn't come with a TMZ watermark or a TMZ-style snark headline. It came from someone inside the circle. An anonymous burner account, briefly online for 48 minutes, posted it on a secure Reddit forum used by ex-industry insiders, private investigators, and digital sleuths. It wasn't shared with commentary, just an image. Clean. Untouched. And it spread like wildfire. The image? Meghan Markle, sitting cross-legged on a white leather lounger aboard the yacht's upper deck. Prince Andrew, unmistakably beside her. Shirtless. Reclining. His hand mid-gesture, as if telling a story. They weren't alone. A third figure, partially obscured, was sitting opposite them. But the woman in focus was Ghislaine Maxwell. Wearing a teal sarong and sunglasses, holding what appears to be a clipboard. That was the moment. The holy trinity of scandal. Meghan Markle, Prince Andrew, Ghislaine Maxwell, captured in the same frame. And the caption accompanying the post? 2015 Monaco. Yacht Manifest, White Lotus. Welcome to the party. The post was removed in under an hour. But by then, screenshots had traveled to thousands. And the world? It changed. The implications were instant. Up until now, the photos could be explained away. Shadows. Blurry silhouettes. A case of mistaken identity. But not this one. This was color. Context. Composition. Meghan's smile. Andrew's posture. Ghislaine's presence. This wasn't a party selfie. This was a record. A digital time bomb that detonated across headlines, celebrity circles, and, most dangerously, legal discussion forums. Within hours, Reddit threads were locked. Journalists scrambled to confirm metadata. Twitter was flooded with hashtags. Hashtag Yachtgate. Hashtag Meghan Maxwell. Hashtag Andrew exposed. Hashtag the second photo. Meghan's legal team? Completely blindsided. According to one Montecito insider, her attorney sprinted out of a meeting mid-call, demanding to know how the hell this got out. But it was too late, because this image didn't come from a paparazzi drive-by. It didn't come from a tabloid raid. It came from someone on that yacht, someone who wanted it known, and someone who had nothing left to lose. Let's break it down. The context of the photo is crucial. Date stamps place it during the same Cap DL trip as the first image. The yacht, believed to be the White Lotus, had been docked in a high-security harbor, accessible only by private tender. Guests had been shuttled aboard in prearranged groups, with no public record of their names. That alone suggests planning. The image background shows several champagne flutes, untouched food, and a stack of paper documents on the table between the three. And here's the twist. Analysts believe those papers aren't party decorations. They're contracts. One digital forensic expert, using image magnification and pixel enhancement, believes the documents are printed with formal letterheads, possibly NDAs. That's right. The second photo may not just show Meghan and Andrew at a party. It may show them signing agreements, with Ghislaine Maxwell facilitating. If true, the implications are enormous. Why was Meghan signing anything aboard a yacht with Andrew and Ghislaine? What were they agreeing to? Was it a deal? An agreement? A confidentiality pact? And who else signed that day? Because if NDAs were being signed, that means there was something to hide. Now pause for a moment and imagine the panic in Meghan's camp. Up until now, the story had been a slow boil. Manageable. Deny the rumors. Dismiss the photos. Frame it all as a coordinated smear campaign. But this was undeniable. And worse, this was undocumented, at least publicly. There's no mention of this yacht trip in any of Meghan's interviews. No reference in Finding Freedom. No breadcrumbs in her Vanity Fair profile. And certainly no acknowledgement in the Netflix docuseries. So why the cover-up? Why erase this trip from history? Because of what it suggests. That Meghan wasn't just in the room with scandal. She was involved in the architecture of it. Harry, reportedly, was speechless. According to insiders, he was shown the photo by a close friend, someone who had received it via private message just hours before it hit the news cycle. His first words? Is that real? When told yes, he allegedly walked out of the room and didn't return for 2 hours. Another source claims Meghan tried to dismiss it as a social appearance, claiming she didn't know who Ghislaine Maxwell was at the time. That Andrew had invited her. That she didn't sign anything. That it was all just part of the lifestyle back then. But Harry didn't buy it. He reportedly asked, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" And once again, there was silence. A devastating pattern. Meanwhile, the media spun into overdrive. Mainstream outlets began cautiously referring to this second photo. Legal experts debated whether the image alone could reopen inquiries into Andrew's Epstein involvement. One UK tabloid even published a list of yachts linked to both Andrew and Ghislaine over a 10-year period, placing Meghan within 3 degrees of separation to at least 4 of them. Suddenly, Meghan wasn't just a duchess under fire. She was a potential witness. Some even suggested she could be subpoenaed in ongoing civil suits tied to Epstein's estate. That's how serious it got. And Archwell? Radio silent. No press release. No podcast episode. No empowering Instagram quote. Just quiet. Because they had no playbook for this. You can't brand manage your way out of that photo. And just when it seemed like it couldn't get worse, someone leaked the audio. Yes, audio. Not of Meghan. Of Andrew. A muffled recording allegedly captured on the same yacht, believed to be from a bodyguard's lapel mic, inadvertently activated. The snippet is short, but damning. Andrew can be heard saying, "She's sharp, knows exactly what she's doing." Then laughter, then silence. It's unclear who he was talking about, but the timing, the context, everyone assumed the same. He was talking about Meghan, and that single quote, those 6 words, set the internet ablaze. Knows exactly what she's doing. A line that shatters the Cinderella narrative. That flips the story. That suggests Meghan wasn't a passive guest, but a player. A willing participant in a game no one talks about publicly. Until now. So now, the world is watching. Waiting. Because if one photo could do this much damage, what about the rest? Because whispers are swirling of a third image. One darker. One more revealing. One with a new figure entering the frame. And if that photo leaks, it's not just Meghan who's finished. It's Harry. It's Archwell. It's every sponsor, partner, and brand still holding on to this royal fantasy. And the most terrifying part? The third photo? It's not owned by a tabloid, or a yacht crew member, or even a fellow guest. It's in the possession of someone else entirely. Someone Meghan once called a dear friend. And what he plans to do next, no one is ready for.